And joining us now on the debate, the juniors. From the House of Commons, Peter Braid, first elected in 2008 as the Conservative MP for Kitchener-Waterloo. Bruce Heyer, first elected in 2008 as the NDP MP for Thunder Bay Superior North. And Bonnie Crombie, first elected in 2008 as the Liberal MP for Mississauga-Streetsville. And from the Ontario Legislature, Yasser Naqvi, first elected in 2007 as the MPP for Ottawa Centre. In the nation's capital, Lisa MacLeod, first elected in a 2006 by-election as the Conservative MPP for Nepean Carleton. And Paul Miller, first elected in 2007 as the New Democrat MPP for Hamilton East Stony Creek. Welcome back, juniors. Lovely to see you all here. And Lisa, nice to have you in Ottawa Centre, incidentally, in our studios over there in Ottawa. Okay, some of you have had some fairly significant changes in your lives since we last convened. Some of you not so much, so let's go through it, shall we? Peter, when we first met in 2008, you had just won your first election by 17 votes.
That's correct.
Last year, you got reelected by more than 2,000 votes. Which was a more fun night for you?
The more recent one was more fun.
Why is that?
Well, there's something very validating about getting reelected. I guess would be my first comment. But that said, even though I won my most recent election by 2,100 votes, I still operate like I won by 17. And you know, winning such a close election really does have a strong formative impact on one's political career, and I think a long-lasting one.
So you don't feel you're on easy street now because, hey, 2,000 votes, that's tons.
Not at all. Still working like I'm tied.
Okay. Yasser, biggest change in your life, of course, is that when you were here last time, you were sitting as part of a majority government, and now you are part of a good-sized but still minority government. How does that change the way you do your job?
It is a fairly big change in terms of majority government and minority government. I think one big change I always highlight is that I have to now spend far more time in Toronto than I like. Well, because the votes are close. It is a minority of one vote. That means all members have to be in the legislature as close to the chamber as possible in case that there is a vote taking place. And I think because of that, the responsibilities have have increased as well because there are fewer members on the government side, so more work needs to be done.
Lisa, that suggests that he thinks that you guys will somehow call for a snap vote and try to, you know, defeat the government without any notice, and you wouldn't do that, would you?
Oh, well, we could do anything in a minority government. And Yasser's far too modest. The other big thing that happened in Yasser's life since the last election is he's now a dad. And of course, all my colleagues on the panel probably want to congratulate him for all those sleepless nights that we invite him to enjoy with us. You know, I must agree with Yasser. Both of us come from the nation's capital, from Ottawa. We do the alternate route for many of our colleagues that are on the panel today federally that come into our city. And it has had a dramatic impact, I think, on all of us that are outside of the GTA in terms of our scheduling. And we are spending a lot more time at Queen's Park, longer hours, and I, like Yasser, also have a bigger portfolio this go round. So it's been pretty incredible. I've enjoyed my move to the front bench, but again, the votes are close. It's really important that we're there. Committee work is more important than it has ever been. So it's a lot more work. So I think, have a lot more sympathy for our federal colleagues who've gone through this for 3 elections in a row and now are in a majority territory there.
I'm not sure, Lisa,
I'm
not sure that the Liberals are happy to have you on the front bench, but that is true. You've got an improved seat in the legislature now. Paul, how about for you?
Dalton McGuinty loves the fact that we sit so close together.
No, he doesn't. I think I'm safe in saying that. How about you? How's life different now that it's a minority parliament?
Well, I'll repeat what my colleague said, that it's very crucial that you're available and around in case there's any votes that may come up that could sway opinion by the public or the parties for that matter. And it's different for me now. I'm sitting in the chair too, as well as a deputy speaker. Now we've learned to you have to be fair, and your rulings have to get the respect of all parties, and you certainly have to. There's should be no partisan politics when you're sitting in that chair.
I was going to bring this up later, but as long as you're on it now, can we get this shot up now? I cannot believe this is you, because this guy is from Hamilton East Stony Creek, which is kind of one of the tough parts of town. Go to number 24. There's Paul Miller in the chair as deputy speaker. I mean, you're one of the elbows up, hockey playing, you know, tough guys down there, and you're supposed to keep order?
Well, I think it was I refereed for many years in the OMHA, and I think this is more or less a referee's job. And I was one of the guys that probably committed some of the penalties, and
Yes,
and I knew the results and what would happen and how they would assess my penalty. So I knew that gave me a good guidance as far as being a referee to sit in that chair, because it's very, very similar. And
You throw anybody out yet?
I've been close, but no. But you certainly you have to know when to put the hammer down, so to speak, and you have to know when to be fair. So it's quite a balancing act, and I certainly had practices in all areas of being one that may have committed some of the violations sitting in my seat, and I know what to do now.
Okay. Bruce, over to you now. First and foremost, let's find out about your health, because last time you were here, you were fighting cancer.
All good.
You're all good now?
Apparently.
Clean bill of health.
Apparently.
'Cause
Feel good.
You look terrific.
Oh, thank you.
So congratulations. The biggest difference, I guess, in your life right now is that when you first came here, you were part of the NDP caucus, and now you're not. What happened?
Well, I'm still a card-carrying NDP member, a member of the party, but I left the caucus because I have found, well, you may recall, if you go to old clips when we met before, right off the top I said that this was the most dysfunctional system I'd ever participated in my life. I haven't changed my opinion. It's, we really need electoral reform. We need reform in the House of Commons in a variety of ways. All three of the major parties are way too controlling of the MPs. And so I finally decided that I could be more effective for my constituents by being an independent.
How did you break that news to Tom Mulcair, who had just become leader, when you did that?
Well, we had a number of chats leading up to the convention, and we both knew how each other stood on it. So he found out through the media, but I don't think it came as that big a surprise for him. I think that there were two people who were pleased with my decision. I was pleased, and I think Tom Mulcair was pleased as well.
He was happy to be rid of you?
I think so, given that I persisted in being a bit of a maverick inside and outside of caucus and voting the way my constituents or my conscience dictated.
Bonnie, I've left you for last because when you first were here, you were a member of Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition at Parliament. But like half the Liberals in that caucus on election night last year, you lost your seat on election night. So I want to start there. May 2nd, 2011. Did you know that night you were going to lose?
No idea. Absolutely none. And when the polls were coming in, I thought, wow, another rogue poll. How did that happen? So I had no idea. I wasn't prepared to lose. I thought I'd been doing a great job. I was our GTA caucus chair, and I was our NATO parliamentary representative, so no, I really didn't see it coming at all.
When the numbers finished coming in and you saw that you'd lost,
yes,
did you think it was your fault that you'd lost?
Well, if you look across the country, as you said, half our caucus had been defeated. So something had happened. I think as a party we lost touch with our voters, lost touch with our base. We failed to communicate our message, and we have a lot of rebuilding to do.
If you didn't think it was your fault, because I didn't hear you say, yes, I thought it was my fault, whose fault did you think it was that half the caucus lost?
You know, as I said to you, I think it was just we had lost our way as a party. We had lost our focus. We become divided. We lost touch with our base. We have a lot of work to do to rebuild.
I'm going to stop the story there and come back to you later, because that story's not over yet. Peter, yes. Her loss was your gain. You went from 2 minority governments to a majority government. Never happened before in Canadian history. What's the biggest difference in your life as a Conservative backbencher now that you have a majority government?
Well, it's certainly significantly better being part of a majority government. The biggest difference is that we don't need to worry about election threats every 3 months, which was the reality in a minority government situation. We now have a longer time horizon with which we can plan, not only as a government, but as individual members of Parliament. And that's a good situation to be in.
Having said that, this tape went viral, and I'm going to play it now. This is your colleague from British Columbia. You knew this was coming. David Wilkes, who I guess somebody pulled out a smartphone and shot him giving a speech to some constituents, and he talked about what an average MP really can do. Look at the monitors here in the studio. Roll tape, please.
If Cabinet and the Prime Minister send a vote to the whip to say that this will be a 3-line whip and this is how you will vote on the budget, this is how you will vote on the budget. There is no argument. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, they've made up their mind. And this is how it's going to move forward. And one person is not going to make a difference. One MP is not going to make a difference.
One MP is not going to make a difference. That, I mean, a variation on the theme that Pierre Trudeau advanced many years ago, that 100 yards away from Parliament Hill, MPs are nobodies. What was the impact of that video inside your caucus?
Well, I think it's clear that budgets are confidence votes, and as a member of Parliament, you're part of a team, and politics is a team sport, and it's important that you support the members of your team. And at the end of the day, this budget is good for Canada. It's important in terms of job creation, of economic growth, of long-term prosperity. It's also a budget, in my case, that I know will significantly benefit the constituents of my riding of Kitchener-Waterloo.
But were people inside your caucus upset with David for going off script?
Not terribly. Not terribly.
Were they terribly thrilled with the fact that he went off script?
Neither that.
I didn't think. Bruce, what about, to the substance of what David was saying in that clip? What do you think?
I think that most of the members of Parliament, including many cabinet members, are controlled by the process, controlled by the parties, and that's why I went independent. And I've got to tell you, it's a breath of fresh air. You'd be amazed how many people from all parties, MPs from all parties, have come to me and said, Bruce, let's have a coffee or a beer and talk about what it's like to be an independent. You're getting a lot of questions, you're getting a lot of statements, you're a free agent, you smile a lot. I'm interested in just what it's like to be an independent, so I'm trying to coax them over to join the bloc, and Bruce and Elizabeth over in the corner there, and then we can really raise heck.
Was that something you ever considered doing, that Ottawa had become so dysfunctional as a member of Parliament, you thought maybe it's better to be an independent?
No, never.
No?
I loved my job. I
So
loved the work that I did.
You think he's wrong about that?
Well, Bruce has told you that he's less partisan than some of us have been, so perhaps that's part of it as well.
So this is an admission that you're one of the uber partisan members of Parliament, or you were anyway.
Well, I'm not a member of Parliament anymore.
Not anymore. But when
I
you
have
were
a
there,
different boss.
When you were there, you were.
Perhaps I was.
Perhaps. Okay. How does it go, Lisa? Let me bring you in at this. As an ordinary opposition backbencher, you're not a cabinet minister. You're on the opposition benches. Does what David had to say in that clip resonate with you, in as much as you feel that one person really can't do much?
No, I absolutely disagree. I feel that as part of a team, you can make a big difference. But also, I think it's really important that caucus or cabinet solidarity is key. It's fundamental in a parliamentary democracy. All those debates need to happen around that table, and as long as you're heard and you understand the course of action that the caucus has decided to take, that's what you do. And I've been fairly comfortable the last 3 elections that I've been an MPP, knowing that I've had my say around the caucus table, and I've been able to support the direction of the party under the leadership of the proper leader or the caucus chair. So I think that people have to understand what they sign up for when they get elected. When they're part of a caucus, they run on a platform, and you take ownership of those party policies and platforms, and that's how I've always operated. In addition to that, I disagree that we are not important outside of Parliament Hill or Queen's Park. In fact, I think my caucus colleagues would agree that we are value added in our community so long as we work hard, we bring those views to the table of caucus, and we stand on the floor of the legislature or Parliament on those issues that are important to my constituents. And I firmly feel that the work that I do is important not only to me but also to the people that I represent. So I just have a different view than that.
Quick follow with Bruce then. You got elected as a New Democrat. Do you think you've somehow broken faith with the people who put you into Ottawa, who voted for a New Democrat by quitting the caucus?
We're going to find out in 2015. I plan to run probably as an independent. But I've done some polling, both formal and informal, and I have a lot of support in the riding for what I did. Everywhere I go. Obviously, the people that are very partisan, if they're very partisan, conservative or liberal, it's a great excuse to opportunity to kick higher. If people voted for the party and not for Bruce, then they're not happy, of course. But generally speaking, most of my constituents seem to prefer to have me standing up for them rather than obeying the leader or a party whip.
Yeah, sir. How about for you? Ordinary backbencher, you're not in cabinet. Some days you feel like a nobody?
No, I will disagree with Bruce's point as well. There is a value that an individual MPP brings, and yes, you can deliver that value being sitting as an independent or as part of a caucus. And the value is that you're a champion for your community. You work on issues that are important to your community. But then there is a strong advantage to being part of a team as well. Doesn't matter if you're in government or.
It sounds like you got to give up a lot of free speech rights to be part of a caucus.
Not true, because inside the caucus, you can talk about everything and anything. And I mean, every team has some rules associated with it. And in politics, one of the rules in team is that as a family, you go inside closed doors and you talk about issues. And that's where you get to jockey for positions. That's where you get to influence and advocate for a particular policy idea. Beside the caucus room, you can always work with ministers or through their staff in promoting ideas and issues as well. But then there's other rule of the team that when you get out in public, you speak with one voice, you speak with unison, and you advance your issues. And I think the system has worked well, and it has its merit because strong teams then result in real results for the community.
Okay, let me try this with you, Paul, because you know Dalton McGuinty and your leader Andrea Horvath had a private meeting about the budget in his office, and after that meeting was over, the two of them agreed that they would tax very rich people in this province to the tune of another $400 million and another $20 million for a hospital up in Northern Ontario. Right. You didn't get a say in any of that. Did that bother you?
Not completely true. We have our caucus meetings, and we have we have some strong members that'll bring forth their opinions and ideas, and you fight it out in caucus. You may have one group that wants to go one way and another group that wants to go another way. And you have to talk it out and compromise and get a little bit for everybody, because every region you come from in Ontario has different issues, and you have to find a balance, which is very difficult sometimes to find a balance when a party takes a position, but you have to work it out and to the satisfaction of the members. And some of the members will, they'll hold out for a while until they move in the right direction.
Who held out?
I don't want to say any individuals, but you can. I'll leave it to your imagination.
Just give me their initials. You don't have to tell me their names.
But you certainly talk it out, and then it's a group decision, and they're right that it would not look good if some of the group went one way and the other group went the other way. But I actually envy Bruce with his ability to do whatever he wants. And that is certainly an interesting.
My constituents want.
Well, okay, whatever he wants as far as the constituents want when it comes to a vote.
So quit the caucus.
You could quit the caucus, but then
make some news today.
You might be entertained, but you might be entertained by other groups wanting you to join them. So that certainly goes on in Parliament too. So, but no, I'm a staunch NDPer.
I have heard, Yasser, that with previous minority parliaments that the solidarity is often more intense and better because everybody knows that you can't go too far offside or you run the risk of actually losing the government. Have you found that to be the case?
I have. The team is, I think, far more cohesive. It works even more closely together than before my experience from the previous government. So that is true. Maybe because it is a smaller number of people, so it's easy to sort of get everybody's point of view consulted and brought into discussion. But it is a strong team. Everybody does work closely together and have an eye on the ball. I want to add one more point. I think, like everything in life, you win some, you lose some. And the same thing is in a party setting or in a caucus setting. You advocate for things, you prioritize what's most important to me and what's not, and you'll get some stuff and you may not get some stuff. It does not mean that you're not doing your job. What it means is that you just have to work harder next time to get your point across, and I think it works well.
Flip side of that, Peter, then is you couldn't, as a minority government, afford to go too far offside with your party because they needed every single vote. Do people, now that you're sitting on top of a majority government, think that they have a few more rights to freelance than before?
I think that's perhaps human nature, that now that we're in a majority setting, perhaps, there's still obviously a very important need for discipline, but there's something there's something about a minority government situation that really focuses the mind and really focuses the team. But ultimately, we're a very strongly united government, a very strongly united team. And to Yasser's point, ultimately our jobs as MPPs or MPs is to do what's best for our riding, to do what's best for our constituents. In my case, I feel I can do that being part of a team and within the Conservative caucus. And it doesn't mean, because you're not an independent, that you're not fighting and advocating, that you're not taking a minister aside and expressing a concern or articulating an issue that's of particular importance to your riding.
Sure, but if it goes not the way you want it to go inside caucus, you have to leave that caucus and you've got to pretend to be on side.
That's one of the rules.
Why does that have to be one of the rules? You know, in Britain they have votes where the people vote against their caucus and their governments all the time, and Her Majesty's government is still in place all these years later. Why don't we do that?
Well, I think we have an important tradition. Well, we also have free votes as private members. But knowing, actually, this is the reason why this Canadian principle is important. Knowing that you can go into a caucus meeting and that what you say will be completely confidential within that setting, and that it won't be leaked, that another colleague won't come out to the microphone after the meeting, ensures that you have a forum within caucus where you can completely and freely express your mind. That's why that tradition is so important.
That may be true in your caucus, but that's not true in the Liberal caucus.
No, it wasn't always true in our caucus.
Bob Rae joked at the day when he announced he wasn't running for the permanent leadership that it was a great secret until caucus started, and then if you want something announced, just tell the Liberal caucus it's top secret.
In
and
fact, I think you tweeted it.
I might have actually, yeah.
But life is different now for me. I have a lot more flexibility and freedom. I see a question coming.
It's coming, it's coming. Hold off now, because I want to get to the budget stuff here in Ontario. And we saw a lot of insults traded back and forth over the last couple of weeks. And Lisa, let me start with you on this one.
I traded none.
You usually save your insults for question period, but there are other times, for example, when Dalton McGuinty and Andrea Horwath were going back and forth, calling each other untrustworthy, and this guy's a bully, her word's no good anymore. I want to know how much of that is theater and how much of that really hits the mark and hurts.
Well, you know what? I think that they were in intense negotiations over a period of time, and I think the issue was very heated. The rhetoric sort of sped up. I can say this, though, because I see them on a daily basis, that I think they're, the three leaders, Tim Hudak, Andrea Horwath, and Dalton McGuinty, may not be best friends, but they certainly do respect one another, and I think that type of language wouldn't be used to one another as much as it might have been through the newspaper. And then, of course, there's always people that would like you to say certain things and would prime and pump those leaders to say certain words to get a certain reaction, whether it's from the media or from the public. But I think at the end of the day, we moved on. A budget crisis was averted, and I think most of that right now is forgotten, and people are just really excited here in the nation's capital and probably the rest of Ontario that Canada Day is coming up. So I don't place too much credence on it. We have a lot of fun in question period from time to time. In fact, sometimes we're also seen joking in question period with one another on the other side. So
no, I know that's true, but Yasser, let me follow up with you on that, because Dalton McGuinty said he couldn't trust Andrea Horwath, said her word was no good. Greg Sorbera said, felt like I'd been stabbed in the back by Andrea Horwath. I mean, some of this stuff was pretty intense. And I want to know how much of it was theater and how much of it was real.
Well, this is serious business. Governing is not a joke. There's a lot at stake. I often say, we get into talking about the inside baseball around Parliament and this and that, but there are some real ramifications to the decisions we make. And take, for example, Ontario's budget and this economic climate. We're the 7th largest non-sovereign borrower in the world. So what happens in Ontario in terms of the budget has an impact on our credit rating, has an impact on how much interest we pay. So you can imagine, you attach then that seriousness, there will be emotional moments where people will say some stuff sometimes that will have an impact. One of the things that I'm learning in this line of work over time as I've been elected, especially in the minority government, trust is everything. Trust among our own colleagues within our own party, and among each other as well. And as a result of trust, we can do a lot if we really do give each other the word.
You know who trusts you? Peter Sherman, conservative finance critic.
Great, and I trust Peter. And here's a great example. Peter and I were both on the Standing Committee of Finance and Economic Affairs. Program. We have been on this program, and we get along, even though we are fairly quite opposite to each other in all respect. but we trust each other. So we were able to have that open line of communication and keep talking to each other and get things done on behalf of our respective parties.
Tell me this, your leader called the Premier of Ontario a bully.
Right.
A week after this whole anti-bullying legislation went through, and I mean, I'm sure that was designed to stick it to him.
Well, you know, frankly, I don't like the personal attacks. I think if you're going to deal with issues, deal with issues. If you've got a difference of opinion, you state it to the public, let the public judge your position. And I didn't like the antics that went on about calling people liars and things like that. I think that's a cornered person. When a person has to attack somebody personally and can't deal with the issues, they're cornered. And frankly, it was falsehoods what they were saying, because Andrea had simply said, "I will pass the budget motion to discuss the budget. When it goes to committee, we'll bring amendments forward," is what she said. She did not promise to pass Budget 55 or Bill 55. She said, "We'll discuss it and then we'll decide what we're going to do." So when they called her a liar, that really irritated me, because that's not the truth. And some of the stuff that comes out of the mouths of some ministers and leaders is frankly insulting.
You wonder if, I mean, we're not going to go through all this again next year, are we? Same
you could.
deal all over
you
again?
could.
Why not?
You could.
Why not? Because you enjoyed it so much this time. Okay, let's get
so
to...
much fun.
Not for everybody. Let's get to Bonnie Crombie, bringing you back in here. 4 months after you lost, what happened?
I ran in a by-election against 26 other people and won. In fact, I won the election I thought I'd lose, and I lost the one I thought I'd win. So
now, this was for municipal politics.
It was for municipal politics. My predecessor was Eve Adams. She ran federally as a councillor for the Conservatives and won her seat. And there was a by-election because the seat was open, and 26 other people put their name in before me. It took a lot because I had just been defeated, and I was quite disappointed about being defeated. And it had to build a team and get to learn the issues. It was 2 ridings over from where mine had been. And put a team together and decide to run. The mayor had approached me. She said, "You know, you were a great MP. I thought you did a good job. You did a good job for us in Mississauga, so I hope you'll consider this." And I really hadn't considered it until we had the conversation.
You beat Carolyn Parrish.
I did.
Who was another former Liberal MP.
Yes.
Is she off your Christmas card list now?
I think I'm off hers for
and
sure.
You guys are not on? I think it's accurate to say you were the first person to have lost back in May to have run again. Yes, to get reelected.
I did.
And I guess some people might be wondering, why did you choose to do that rather than go find something else to do entirely?
Well, I love serving the community. I love representing people. I think I was an effective advocate. You know, waves happen. It's what we all sign up for. One day you're elected, and one day suddenly you're not. And it may have no fault through no fault of your own, frankly. So I found myself still wanting to serve the community and still wanting to be their advocate. And here was an opportunity to do so.
It's 13 months since you lost your seat.
Yes.
At what point do you stop thinking of yourself as a defeated MP and start thinking of yourself as a city councillor?
Well, last September, when I was elected, I started thinking of myself on a new team with a new leader and in a new role. I mean, I can't live in the past. I'm looking forward. Every day I think about, you know, what more I can do to serve the residents of Ward 5. How can I improve their lives?
Gotcha. Peter, there's going to be a cabinet shuffle soon. At least that's what we're told. Big scuttlebutt out of Ottawa is there's going to be a cabinet shuffle. There are now many more backbenchers that you have to compete with to get one of those small number of cabinet jobs. In a way, is it not such a great thing to be in a majority government because your chances of getting into cabinet just got that much tougher?
It's still a really great thing to be part of a majority government. And there are opportunities for individual members of Parliament. There are continuing opportunities for us to make a difference ourselves as individual members of Parliament. 2 examples. In the last session of Parliament, I submitted a private member's motion which won the unanimous support of the House of Commons to look at ways to motivate Canadians to increase their charitable giving. That study is happening as we speak at the Finance Committee. That's a wonderful opportunity to hopefully positively shape public policy. More recently, at my industry committee, I initiated a study to look at the intellectual property framework in Canada. So there are opportunities for you to find your niche, to advance issues that are important to you and important to your community and push them forward. And ultimately, this job is about representing your community and your constituents effectively, whether you're in cabinet or not.
You'd rather be Minister of State for Finance so you could actually shepherd that through, though, wouldn't you?
That would be helpful.
You're not going to kid us if we wouldn't. Lisa, let me ask you about the style of opposition that you have now become, I was going to say famous, but maybe is the word notorious for playing. You're one of the people on the opposition benches who, you know, if I can use an analogy from 25 years ago, you're kind of part of the conservative rat pack down there at Queen's Park. And, you know, there are some people who oppose in a sort of quieter way, and you're not one of them. Why is that?
Well, certainly in the last 2 sessions, I was certainly more of a vocal opponent of the government and far more aggressive. This session, I've adopted a different approach. I guess just it must be my age, and it's also, I think, probably the portfolio I have, where you really have to pull up your socks and do a lot more study and be a lot more thoughtful. That's not to say that I'm still not you know, all fired up and excited from time to time in question period. But the work that I've been doing on my committee, as well as in my new portfolio in education, has taken me to a different approach, simply because of the depth of the work that's required and the importance of it. So it's been, you know, question period is still fun. I'm still a big cheerleader of our leader, Tim Hudak, and of course our caucus. And from time to time, there's lots of light moments with my colleagues on the other side that we'll have some fun. But it's generally been a bit of a shift for me for the past year.
Does anybody tell you to tone it down?
Every day.
Oh, well, Paul Miller does from time to time. In fact, he's the deputy speaker when I'm on House duty, and he taught me, and I'm going to tell this story to Paul. A few years ago, he had asked Ernie Hardiman, who is our agricultural critic, for a word for I guess a different word for manure in the House to say to a minister, and so he came up with the term heifer dust. And of course, Paul told me about this one evening at Queen's Park, because people don't realize that many of us are friends after hours, and of course usually after question period. And so Paul's in the chamber as presiding, and I've used the term heifer dust twice. Well, he can't keep a straight face when I do it, but he hasn't ruled me out of order yet. But it's all in good fun, and from time to time we do have those good moments in our chamber.
I actually didn't mean, does anybody in the opposition side or any of your opponents tell you to tone it down? I meant, does anybody on the conservative backbench tell you to tone it down?
Oh, heck no. No,
heck no.
They like to fire me up.
Okay. Paul, I wonder whether, you know, for better or for worse, the McGuinty government survives because of you and your NDP colleagues. And I wonder whether you are concerned about that.
Well, actually, that's not completely true, because what the survival is if we had to fight to get what we could get out of them. Remember, there's only 17 of us, and they try to make us look like we're the government. There's 52 Liberals and 37 Conservatives. So it's not that we were put in a position where if we support the government, the Conservatives say, oh, there goes the NDP propping up the Liberals. And if we call for an election, 44% or 48% of the people in Ontario didn't want an election. Well, there's the NDP, the Liberals will say, there's the NDP costing you $100 million or whatever for an election. So we were between a rock and a hard place. So we had to negotiate toughly, we had to negotiate smartly, and we had to decide, when we decided to not actually vote for it, is because we were not happy with it. But we did not want to cost the province an unnecessary amount of money, yet we wanted to get some of the things we fought for. And this is just a skirmish. The war is not over. The fight's not over. We will continue to strive for the things that we want to see for Ontario, and Andrea will continue to fight for the things for the province.
I wonder if there's a cautionary tale from the other side here. I remember a year ago when the Liberals brought in that motion of contempt, and we're all very excited to go to the polls thinking that Canadians weren't going to put up with this contemptuous Conservative government, and you got your backsides handed to you.
Well, I told you, we lost touch with our voters, we lost touch with our base. But I wanted to comment as well about being able to initiate legislation. I mean, you know, my number for my private members bill was 177. It was never going to see the light of day. And that's why here as
better explain what that means. When you say
yeah, there's a ballot.
Was?
Yeah, you have it was random. Yeah, it gets chosen
There's a lottery and you're...
Exactly.
But you're well
to
down,
introduce,
so.
well down. It would never happen to introduce a private members bill. But now I have all that kind of flexibility I need to introduce whatever I think is in need of the community or in interest to my residents. and I have done so. I've done a lot of great work already. We introduced a business improvement area in Malton because we know the residents need it. We've introduced a community improvement plan. I've improved my access so I'm available to the citizens. I've introduced a governance committee on City Council.
So is this a better job than the previous one?
They're different. They're very different. But you know what? The issues I deal with are on the front lines. They're the ones that people care about. They're nearest and dearest to their hearts. They affect them. They affect their lives daily.
Can I add, because I think we were talking about it earlier about individual members, whether they can get things done or not. And here's an example. Both Paul and I have an example each where you can get things done. Paul just got a private member's bill passed into law. I just got a private member's bill passed into law. Both were significant bills. They were not minor things. They were not just
minority parliament.
Minority
Big
parliament.
difference.
But you know why? Also, because we worked with members from other parties. Paul's bill was co-sponsored by another Conservative member. My bill was co-sponsored by a Conservative and an NDP member. We worked together. We found a common ground, something that we agreed. We obviously lobbied hard among our own parties and our own caucuses and brought all those members together, and we got Royal Assent the other day, passed through 30. So that's very significant, and it's quite empowering as a member.
I want to pursue that with you because I always find it unfailingly when we get this group together, 3 different parties, everybody is just very collegial with each other. But then when it goes to the floor of the legislature, the floor of the House of Commons, you know, it's craziness. Why can't it be more like this?
I don't know if you've seen it, Steve, but Huffington Post asked me to do a blog about how I'd fix Parliament, so I have my 4-step plan. People can Google Bruce Hire Huffington Post, they can read it. But one of them is an idea to randomize us in the House so that we're not sitting in hockey teams and that we're sitting next to each other. We get to know each other as people and become a little more collegial. The really big problem in the federal parliament since 1970 is that the national leaders have to sign our nomination papers. And believe me, I know firsthand the threats that if you don't toe the line, that your nomination papers won't be signed.
So if you want to run again, Tom Mulcair is going to have to sign your papers?
No, that's if I'm an NDP caucus member. If I run as an independent, that's not the case. But that happened in 1970. From 1867 till 1970, Johnny MacDonald had trouble keeping his own caucus in line, and he had to work for them rather than work for him. So when we added the parties to the ballot in 1970, somebody said, we need a verifier. And so they decided it should be the national leader. Bad decision. It should have been the riding association that verified us. And so I'm going to be introducing legislation in the fall to reverse that.
So Stephen Harper has to sign your nomination papers before you can run?
That's correct.
Is that the way it should be?
Some elements of our system are more entrenched than others. I think it's important that we continue to review the aspects of our system, find ways to make the House of Commons more effective. You know, some ideas are better than others. Preston Manning, when he was leader of the official opposition, sat in the second row. That ended up to not be such an effective idea. I'm not sure mixing members of Parliament up in the House of Commons is a particularly good idea as well. And there are lots of opportunities as a member of Parliament to get to know your colleagues from other parties. There are opportunities in committee. There are opportunities through parliamentary associations and friendship groups. And I think what's important is that you go in with that sense of camaraderie, that sense of collaboration, and you get to know your colleagues and know that ultimately you're there to serve your country and to serve your constituents.
Last minute, Bonnie.
No, quickly, I just wanted to say that I had the opportunity to go to Australia and watch the House. And you know, the questions were more substantive because they could be longer, and the responses could be longer. The questions were sometimes 4 minutes, and the responses could be even much longer.
4-minute questions?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, and the responses could be much, much, much longer. You were giving mini speeches every day. And then backbenchers had an opportunity to stand up and ask a question. And I thought that was an interesting dynamic, and I thought that was worthwhile looking at as well.
You like that idea, Yasser? 4-minute questions?
What I say, I still don't heckle in the House. 5 years elected. And what I say, well, why don't, it's up to us too. Why do we yell at each other during question period? Why do we participate in that drama? We can change that tomorrow.
Okay. Juniors, it's good of all of you to join us again. Maybe we should it's rookies,
Seniors.
sophomores, juniors, seniors, of course. Maybe we'll get you back next year when you're all seniors. Thanks very much for joining us. Lisa MacLeod, the PC MPP from Nepean Carleton. Thanks for being there from the nation's capital for us, Lisa. And here in our studios, Peter Braid and Bonnie Crombie, Bruce Hire, and Yasser Naqvi and Paul Miller. Good of all of you to join us again. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.